So continuing our discussion further on. So I advised you at the end of the last video to read your NCERT and watch the video once again with great intent, make your notes, try to understand what we were seeing. And please understand, we were discussing DNA and RNA on certain properties, and we started to understand the stability part, that is an essential requirement for the biomolecule that will store the genetic information in living organism. And we saw in the last video that based on these two parameters, one, that it is double stranded, usually resists changes, affords a mechanism of repair, not easy to denature, and number two, because there is OH group at 2' in RNA. So every nucleotide in RNA is more reactive and hence more labile and hence less stable. But because DNA has 2' deoxyribose sugar, it is more stable than RNA. So we got two clues for that. We further have some clues to say, to reinforce the idea that DNA is more stable than RNA. So now let us look at the next one. So the next criteria where we will consider and we will derive the inference that DNA is more stable is that in DNA you will find that there is a pyrimidine base which is called as thymine. So, and instead uracil is found in RNA. Now uracil in RNA makes it more labile, less stable, and thymine in DNA makes DNA more stable. So presence of thymine instead of uracil makes DNA more stable. Now please understand that this thymine is actually 5-methyl uracil. So can you see the comparability between the two? So there has been added a methyl group to uracil, and then this 5-methyl uracil is actually thymine. Both are pyrimidine bases. This pyrimidine base is found in RNA. This pyrimidine base is found in DNA. We are saying that uracil makes RNA more labile and hence less stable, while thymine instead of uracil in DNA makes DNA more stable. We are seeing the reason for this. We are seeing that there has been a methylation. A methyl group has been added that confers additional stability. Moreover, please try to understand that even in DNA, uracil can be formed by the degradation of cytosine. So cytosine in another base, and if there is some chemical degradation of cytosine, it can form uracil. I am talking of this formation of uracil in DNA that can be because of degradation of cytosine base. But immediately you will be able to identify it because it is something abnormal. It will be easily identified and it will be removed, and hence this repair can be easily achieved in DNA, and therefore again this makes DNA more stable. So when we look at this particular criteria, again we are saying that this is the third clue based on which we can say that DNA is more stable nucleic acid when compared to RNA. So let me reinforce a very important point that is given in your NCERT. So let us look what NCERT says. So NCERT says, in fact, the presence of thymine at the place of uracil also confers additional stability to DNA. Detailed discussions about this requires understanding of the process of repair in DNA, and you will study these processes in higher classes. So I have just given you an idea. I have told you that how uracil can be formed and how DNA will be able to resist change by identifying this abnormal base, and why methylation confers a little bit of stability with respect to uracil to thymine. So this is one more thing. There is another reason why DNA is more stable than RNA, and please understand this very, very important thing. Most enzymes are proteins, but I should rather say almost all enzymes are proteins. So I am saying almost all, but I am not saying all. Now that means something else can act as an enzyme, and this molecule is RNA. So RNA molecule has catalytic function as well. So RNA molecules can act as enzyme. These were discovered by Thomas Sach very recently, and these type of RNA molecules that have catalytic function, they are called as ribozymes. So RNA will take part in chemical reaction, and because it is taking part in the chemical reaction, it is involved in a chemical reaction, I should rather say, and therefore is more likely to be damaged, and hence more labile and less stable. On the other hand, DNA doesn't have any catalytic role. It doesn't have any catalytic function, and therefore it will not be involved in the chemical reactions which are taking part in huge numbers inside the living cells. And because it is not getting involved in any chemical reaction whatsoever, DNA will be more stable than RNA. So again coming to the main point, which is stability, what my deduction is. So the first and foremost, let us write the catalytic role. So we are saying this catalytic role is present in RNA, but DNA doesn't have any catalytic activity. So this is what makes RNA again more labile and hence less stable, and DNA more stable and less labile. So you can easily understand this. So coming back to this very important parameter of stability, we conclude that DNA is more stable and structurally more stable and chemically more inert than RNA. So again, for you, on this criteria, we are saying DNA is structurally more stable and less chemically reactive with respect to RNA. So this is the comparison between the two based on these parameters. Now let us look at the third parameter. The third parameter was that there must be a scope of slow changes. So there must be a scope of slow changes. So please let us compare DNA and RNA, that which one actually affords scope of slow changes. So now my criteria is there must be scope of slow changes. Now slow changes, we can say that this change in the genetic informational molecule will be inherited and will contribute to the variation of the gene pool of the population. We already know higher the number of the variation, more are the chances of the survival of the population in natural selection if the environment is unstable. So I hope this thing is absolutely clear in our mind. So we want some slow changes to occur. We want to explain the diversity. We want to explain the presence of the variation. We know the need of variations for evolutionary forces to act upon, and therefore it is very important that there must be scope of slow changes. So let us in the beginning call this, say for example, a term, let me use it is mutation. So any sudden inheritable change in the genetic informational molecule is called as a mutation. So we will be saying this statement in another words, that it must be able to have mutations but at a slow rate. So please understand, I am not saying that there must be no mutations occurring. Otherwise, there will be a problem in evolution. What we are trying to say that, okay, if it is exhibiting any mutation at all, then they must be at a slow rate. Now, what happens that I am also introducing another word which is called as spontaneous mutation. Now, these spontaneous mutation are the error rate of DNA polymerase. Remember, I told you that it is the DNA dependent DNA polymerase that replicates DNA. So in adding 10 to the power 6 or 10 to the power 7 bases, it has one error. So this is 1 in 10 to the power 6 or 10 to the power 7. So these slow mutations, these slow spontaneous mutation keep on occurring in the nature. This is the error rate in the DNA replication, and hence there will be variability in the DNA molecule. Even in asexual reproduction organism, this mutation will there, and therefore that will be a source of variability variation even in asexually reproducing organisms, though I know that in almost all characters they will be actually genetically identical, but there will be some variability because you cannot stop spontaneous mutation from occurring for the simple reason that it is the inherent error rate of the DNA polymerase. So let us understand this. DNA polymerase, the enzyme that replicates DNA, has a very high fidelity. That means a very low error rate. High fidelity means low error rate, and therefore there are only slow changes. DNA resists changes, we already know. There is a mechanism of matching and repair. If at all there is a mutation, you can match with the other strand of the DNA and repair it. Even if there is a double-stranded DNA damage, then we know that in sexual reproduction, inherent is the synapses between the homologous chromosome, where you can compare the genetic material of one chromosome with the genetic material of the another chromosome and again match and repair any abnormalities. So there is proofreading mechanism available with the DNA polymerase. All these things make DNA replication with a process with very high fidelity and very low error rate, and hence we will say that DNA does afford some changes, but these changes are very slow. Now let us look at RNA. So now let us look at RNA. The problem with RNA is that it is replicated, say for example, by RNA dependent RNA polymerase, which doesn't have a high fidelity. Number two, it doesn't have much of a proofreading mechanism, and since most of the major cellular RNAs are actually single stranded, so we know that basically there will be more error. And one more thing to understand here is that RNA being single stranded has more error rate. We are saying that the enzyme doesn't have a lot of fidelity, and therefore we are saying that it will create more errors. And moreover, please understand the turnover rate. So that means, suppose you want to make insulin in your body, so you have taken a meal, your blood sugar has risen up, and your body responds by secreting insulin. So please remember, insulin is a protein hormone, and therefore there must be a gene of insulin, and you can have only 2 copies of a gene of a particular character. You know this from your previous chapter, Mendelian inheritance. So you can have only 2 copies of alleles of a particular gene, because there are only 2 loci for that. But you will have to make thousands of the messenger RNA molecules, and then therefore when the insulin does its function has been completed, then this RNA molecule must be destroyed as well. Otherwise, what will happen if the RNA molecules, say for example messenger RNA molecules, are long lived and continue producing insulin in spite of the fact that you are not eating and your blood sugar is within normal? The person will land up in hypoglycemia. So please understand, we make large number of RNA molecules. DNA replicates only before cell division, but continuously you are making RNA. So because you are making it rapidly, you are making in large number, where quantity is more important, probably quality is not so important. You can understand that it will have a higher error rate. So RNA, when we look at, they actually mutate at a faster rate, and that also depends on the generation time. If I take this argument further to the argument that is given in your NCERT, where it is giving the example of viruses which have RNA as the genetic material, then you will easily understand, because they replicate faster, RNA viruses replicate faster, the turnover rate is very fast, the generation time is very slow, and because of the fidelity issue, etc., they are able to mutate and hence evolve at a faster rate. So this is what your NCERT is saying. So that means there is HIV, it is a retrovirus, it mutates at a very fast rate, and therefore it mutates and evolves at a very fast rate. And this is one of the reasons that why you have not been able to make a very effective vaccine against such type of viruses which mutate at a very faster rate, because they will be able to change their antigens very rapidly. So I hope this thing is absolutely clear. So once we look at this parameter, slow changes, we are saying saying it is DNA again which is more suitable. It provides a scope of slow changes, not RNA. RNA changes at a very fast rate. So if something changes at a very fast rate, it is not prudent enough to store the genetic information in this particular biomolecule, because you know that with physiology, with timing, with change in environment, there should be no change in the basic structure of the organism. We cannot afford that the structure of the organism changes during the lifetime very often. That will create a nuisance. So please understand, again I am saying that DNA, the DNA, yes, it shows some variation which is very, very important for evolution to occur, but it is very slow. RNA mutates at a very faster rate, and we have concluded rightly that RNA viruses evolve faster, and this is not a good thing for us, because if we are confronting with the viral disease, most of the viral disease we are very helpless against, and we are trying to prevent, we are trying to make vaccines against them, then such a virus which mutates at a very faster rate may be a problematic virus. I hope this thing is absolutely clear. Now we come to the last of the characters of comparison of DNA and RNA, which is that it must be able to express itself in the form of Mendelian trait. So we are looking at the molecule that will be able to express itself in the form of Mendelian characters. So we know there is capital T, as I told you, but it must be reflected in tallness. And only when this phenotype is being formed, the observable traits are called as phenotypes. The measurable traits are called as phenotypes. So please understand, if nature has to select tall individuals, it is not directly selecting the capital T allele. It is actually selecting individuals which are exhibiting a tall phenotype, and indirectly hence is selecting capital T. So now when we look at the central dogma of molecular biology, again we know that the genetic information is stored in DNA, and the information is transcribed into RNA, and then this is translated into the Mendelian traits, which is responsible because of the formation of proteins. So when we see this, immediately we can see that DNA is not directly translated into the proteins. So let me write here proteins. So you are seeing that DNA doesn't translate directly into proteins. It requires an intermediary, which is RNA. So first RNA must be formed, then the language of the RNA will be translated into protein. The language of the DNA, which is actually also made up of nucleotides similar to the language of RNA, but is incapable of getting translated directly into protein. But on the other hand, if you look at RNA, it can be directly translated into the protein. So once we are seeing the two molecules, one is capable of directly getting translated, the other is not. Other requires RNA as an intermediate. So what we understand now, we say that therefore based on all the characters, say for example replicate, we say both can be genetic material. Then on the stability, we said that DNA is more stable than RNA. Number 3, slow changes, we say DNA has this capability, but RNA mutates at a faster rate. But on the other hand, DNA is not directly translated, RNA is. So the conclusion would be that if you want to store genetic information, then a molecule that affords a scope of slow change and is stable enough and actually is capable of replicating itself is the best molecule to store the genetic information molecule. And now we know that this molecule is DNA, and we are not surprised to find that DNA is the genetic material of almost all living organisms. On the other hand, if you are looking at the flow of the genetic information, the transmission of the genetic information, then this dynamic molecule RNA is more suited to this particular function. So again, now we are saying that what my NCERT concludes. So my NCERT concludes is that the above discussion indicate that both RNA and DNA can function as genetic material, but DNA being more stable is preferred for storage genetic information. For transmission of genetic information, RNA is better. So I hope this conclusion is absolutely clear. So summing it up, both DNA and RNA can act as the genetic material because DNA is more stable. It provides a scope of only slow changes, so is a biomolecule that is more suited to store the genetic information. And because RNA is more of a dynamic molecule and is capable of expressing itself into the Mendelian traits directly, we say that the transmission of the genetic information must be the forte of RNA molecule. I hope this very important subsection of your NCERT is absolutely clear. So you watch all the videos now in continuation and then read your NCERT and then attempt the questions. That will be the right way to go about it. Once you look at the video, you will understand. As you have seen, I am again and again showing you the lines of NCERT, that what does it mean. Once after seeing the video, you will read your NCERT, you will be able to comprehend each and every word of it and getting a basic understanding about it, and therefore no need of any cramming about it. And then you attempt the